So Genesis 8 is about what happened after the flood and the waters came in. And God remembered Noah. Remember that it's not that God had forgotten Noah, but he was on a schedule as well. And God went back to what he was. Remember, it's not like, oh, I forgot. It's like he went back to what he was doing. And, the story needed to continue. So God made a wind pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. And the foundations also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped. Now, notice that even when the situation is bad, it will come to an end eventually. So after the 150 days of the rain and the waters of the deep and the torrent from the heavens coming up to fill the entire land with water, up to covering the peaks of mountains, it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent forth a raven, which went to and fro until the waters were dried up. Then he sent forth a dove. I'm telling you, some messengers can be hopeless, but the dove found no rest for their sole of their feet, and she returned to him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. So coming back to him means, we got no landing, and, things out there are so bad. And this is why you need to use the right channel of intelligence, because the dove came back to him, and it showed him and taught him something, that you need to send the right bird out for gathering intelligence. Now, and the dove came to him in the evening. In her mouth was an olive leaf. This is after 7 more days. There's an olive leaf. It had plucked off. So that means that there was living plantation. And then another 7 days, the dove did not return. So we got to know who are our ambassadors. When we go out and we send somebody, can they give us the information we need? Are they going to have, do they already have the characteristics that ensures you that they will come back to you? Or are they going to go and never come back? Because this raven did not come back. And then the other thing to notice is that there's a time period for after a recovery period. There's a recovery of the recovery, because we only think of recovery in terms of, okay, the storm is over. No, but the storm is over. Now the earth needs to recover. People need to recover. Businesses need to recover. So do you have the resources enough, not just to cover the time period of the storm, but also take care of the recovery period after the storm and the recovery of the recovery? Because once businesses start, doesn't mean that money is in the economy yet. Things could still be held up in many ways. So we need also to give time for the full economy to thrive as it was before. So before you go back to normal, you need to double the time period of the storm itself, because the storm itself took 5 months, and guess what? It took another 5 months for things to go back to normal. So having seen that, then finally, God tells Noah to get out. And God spoke unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Okay? So this is in the 2nd month, on the 20th and 20th day of the month. And this is a cumulative of 12 months. Okay? So bring forth thee with everybody. So at some point, God has to tell you when to restart your business. It's not that you're going to just wake up one day and decide, well, let's try and see, how this thing looks like. And the other thing is that for God to tell Noah, it probably means they were getting comfortable. They were getting cozy. And, there was work to do. So some point, you got to get out of the ark, get out of the comfort zone. Get out of the comfort zone. And the Lord smelled the sweet savour of Noah's altar. Now Noah came out and he built an altar in worship to God. You gotta realize that just because you made it out of a storm, it is not normal. A lot of people died. A lot of businesses went under. Yours survived. That is the grace of God. Give thanks to God for it. And what you'd call a normal situation, even on a normal scale, is not normal. That is the providence and the grace of God. For people to be giving unto marriage and being given unto marriage and buffeting and having all this wonderful time, and suddenly the waters of the deep spring up out of nowhere, and it rains torrential rain for 100 and oh man, I feel that for 40 days. You don't even know what God is saving you from. You don't know. So just give thanks regardless, whether it's evident or not. It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. So God enjoyed the savor of the sacrifice, of the worship that Noah gave. And because of that, he made a covenant. That triggered something. It's like God was like, I'm going to make it up to you because of what you've just done. And sometimes we give a huge sum of money to God and we start to complain, start to feel bad. You don't know what it's triggering, because now this free will offering of the sacrifice to God, because of it, the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. This is verse 21 of Genesis 8. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. So notice that God knows our hearts are evil, and yet he said he would not ever again curse the ground because of man. And notice he cursed the ground because of Adam. He also cursed the ground again because of Cain. And then he caused a storm. The wrath of God is real. But because of one righteous man who offered a sacrifice to him in thanksgiving, he made a covenant and said he'd never do it again. He repented of it. Your righteousness is not for yourself, it is for others. Your blamelessness before God can save the entire globe, literally. Believe it. And while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Oh, shall not cease. That's what he said. So he said that the world and the life will continue as normal, even to wicked people. So if this is going to happen to a wicked person, if you're going to reflect the image of God, then that means you will also treat wicked people with respect. Yeah. As much as that sounds crazy, that is the heart of God. He said he would, even though for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, he still said he wouldn't curse. So even wicked people will prosper. Hey, they still have seasons, they still have sunshine, they still have... God gives freely and abundantly, and so should you, freely and give abundantly. And God blessed Noah with sons. This is Genesis chapter 9, and saith unto him, be fruitful and multiply. This has been the consistent commandment of God from the beginning when he created Adam, is be fruitful and multiply, be fruitful, which means our highest mandate and our highest calling as an individual is A, to walk with God, and then B, to be fruitful and multiply. And sometimes we get it twisted. We start with the multiplication and fruitfulness, and that applies for everybody, even those who don't know God. But even the higher objective, the what really distinguishes is the walk with God. Noah did not get saved because he was fruitful. It is because he had an understanding of who God is. He respected him. He honored him. He had fellowship with him. So let's get it right, okay? And the fear of you, that is the fear of human beings, would be upon every beast of the earth, upon every fowl of the air, upon that moveth upon the earth, and upon the fishes of the sea. Basically, he's saying, you're in charge. Human beings, you're the boss. An animal, a creature should not rule you. And when we start to give animals, dogs, an inheritance, we start to give cats preference over the lives of men. And I'm talking about, right now, there's a Ukrainian war going around, and this is 2022 in March, and some cases were reported where animals were given preference over black people, students. That is not right. So God says you are the boss, you rule over, and therefore your value is way higher. That's what he's saying. You matter to me. You are in charge of them, but I am in charge of you. We don't expect animals to bow down to God, but they bow down to man, and man bows down to God. So every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as a green herb have I given you. So notice that God gave man food so basically, even the creation that God gives us, he's the one that has lent it to us for food, for our sustenance. We didn't create no tree. You didn't plant, you planted the tree, but it is God who created it, created that seed, and knows the fruits that should come out of it. So we owe it to God, our very lives, even though we haven't surrendered to him fully in our spirit. The truth is we wouldn't be alive because if he denied us the food, the crop, we would not be alive today. And you, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly. This is the second or third or fourth time. Be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. So God is really interested about growth and multiplication. Even for your business, don't stay at shop level, because it's not supposed to be a permanent stay. It's supposed to be temporary. You should be thinking about scaling to a corporation where people buy your shares, they sit on your boards, they actually transact and get money and dividends out of just selling shares. They don't have to buy just products. There are many ways of creating wealth through you as an organization. And with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the... So he established a covenant with them and with the creatures as well, with humans and creatures. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more from the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Okay? And the bow, this is the sign of the covenant. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you. This is verse 15. And every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it. I might remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh. So there is a sign, and even in organizations, you need to have a sign of the covenant that you have, or the contracts that you have with the people that you're with, so that they're not guessing what is going to happen tomorrow. So you need to have contracts. You need to have contracts that have a promise, and you need to verbalize what the promise is to the customer, what the promise is to the stakeholders. The various stakeholders and all their levels have different promises that you need to make to them, and they can be put on paper through contracts. And verbatim doesn't work very well in this day and age, but even if you verbalize it, then you have to keep saying it. For God to have this covenant, he didn't write it down anywhere, but he said there shall be a sign. That means even if you don't put it down on paper, then there has to be a sign. And notice, this is a covenant. God himself, when he speaks in his mouth, it becomes a covenant. But for you, it's a contract, because human beings can go back on their word. So as we need to write it down. But for God, once he says it, it's done. So his is a covenant, because regardless of whether you keep your end of the bargain, he will keep his. But for us human beings, we tend to want, you give me and I give you, right? So it becomes, the wording is, the term for it is a contract, not a covenant, because we're not infinite like that to have a covenant with anybody. So it's a contract, but a covenant does exist in a marriage. But in business terms, it's not a marriage. It is a business partnership, which means that there are do's and don'ts, and there are options to opt out, where it gets crazy. So God shall enlarge Japheth, and this is what happened. At some point, Noah began to be fruitful and multiply. He became a husbandman, or he became a farmer. He planted a vineyard, and he drank the wine, and he was drunken, and he was uncovered. So what happens is that Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. So there comes a time where you cover the nakedness of somebody, and there's a time to expose things. When you expose things, it's because they're in infringement of your rights. But in this case, there was no infringement of any rights that Noah had violated against his son, and really he needed to be more respectful to his father, which he did not. But the two other sons, Japheth and Shem, actually covered him, and that was the respect that they had on his father that was acted out. So most of the time, you want to know what really somebody thinks of you, it's the acts that they do, it's the actions. So even as a business, the actions that you are going to take tell the external world whether you respect them or not, and vice versa. So God shall enlarge Japheth, and he said, this is Noah now. Noah cursed Canaan because of what happened. He cursed the son of Ham, and then he blessed the Lord of Shem. And this is what's going to happen when people do good things, and when you as a business are engaged in good actions. Guess what? The praise and honor goes back to God. Because even Noah himself blessed God for the actions of his sons, the ones who did the right actions. Shem was blessed. Canaan shall be his servant, and Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Canaan shall be servant. So in other words, Canaan, who is Ham's son, was going to serve both Shem and Japheth. So are we in our business attracting curses, or are we attracting blessings? And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years. So that is the story or the background of Noah, and the principles we can have out of this is: number one, be fruitful and multiply. But be fruitful and multiply after you have established a business have established, yes, a relationship with God that could lead to a business, probably with God. Let God be your partner. Let God be your partner. Invite him on the table. Invite him on the boardrooms, in the board meetings. Invite him, and listen to him. It's not enough just to invite. Listen to what he has to say, because he's not a silent partner. Then be fruitful and multiply means that your hands need to be productive. You have to be productive even as a business. Scale, increase, multiply. Fruitfulness means you have to keep thinking of your next level of growth aspect. And then the third thing that we can draw from this is the benefit of doubt. Give benefit of doubt and cover up people, because you never know. They might bless you, and those blessings could go far. They could be far reaching. And if there's a curse that is attracted, it's also far reaching. So bye-bye for now. Let us listen again to this series in the next chapter, which is Genesis 10. God bless you.